this ride.
Going back to the first one, it was a really big improvement, but that's not really saying much. That movie was kind of bad. Mark Steven Johnson, he did Ghost Rider, and he did the Daredevil movie, which was also kind of borderline terrible. But I digress. This movie was a pretty big improvement from that. It was directed by the guys who did Crank, and they will forever be known as the guys who did Crank. I don't know of any other movie they've done, so let's just leave it at that. And they did a pretty good job with some stuff. Like, the camera angles from whenever there was a car chase or whenever he was on the motorcycle, they got really good shots. They got really close angles of the wheels. It felt like you were right there, if that makes any sense, and the 3D kind of helped that. 3D isn't really necessary for enjoying this movie. I don't know what is necessary for enjoying this movie. I guess, the cage rage is probably the thing everybody was interested in seeing, including myself. Cage rage is whenever Nick Cage decides to make a movie, he just goes batshit crazy. Wicker Man. Ever see Wicker Man? Not the bees! He wears a bear suit and beats the crap out of women. Nick Cage is bad. Nick Cage can only play himself in movies now, if that makes any sense. This character, his name was Johnny Blaze. He's pretty interesting in the comic books, but, he wasn't Johnny Blaze in this movie. He was Nick Cage. Take that as for any way you want. This was Nick Cage playing himself, playing the Ghost Rider. And in this movie, what made it different from the other one, the Mark Steven Johnson one, he was actually able to be the Ghost Rider. Like, it was probably the weirdest thing about this movie. He was doing a lot of zombie walks. Like, whenever Ghost Rider would, like, look at the camera, he'd be like this. And that would go on for that would go on for a little bit. Let's see, what else can I say about this movie? The story was about as interesting as you'd expect. There was a child star in this movie, I guess. He wasn't Jake Lloyd by any means, but you know, you could show a little bit more emotion, a little bit more. Idris Elba. Idris Elba was probably the best actor in this movie, and that's not saying much because look at the cast. I think I'd like to see him in more stuff. When you're going to this movie, you can't have any expectations whatsoever. Walking in this movie expecting to find a really good movie, if you're walking into this movie and you're expecting Oscar-worthy performance, you're not going to get that. You're not going to get that by any means necessary. What you are going to get is a laugh riot. Nick Cage has become a comic genius. I'm not sure if that's intentional or not, but he was hilarious. This movie was fun. This is a good movie if you want to watch it and just sort of make fun of it. It was the best, worst movie I've ever seen. I'd be disappointed if you're a fan of the book. Mephisto. They didn't call him Mephisto in this movie. I don't even know what they called him. It wasn't Mephisto. It didn't sound anything like Mephisto, but whatever. It was Mephisto. He didn't have a demon form in this movie. He had a human form. He was an old man. And, Nick Cage punched him in the face. Apparently, the only way you can defeat the devil in this movie is by punching him in the face. And that's kind of how he beat him. I mean, there was other stuff that happened afterwards, but I don't want to spoil it by any means, but, yeah, apparently that's all it takes. 1 to 10, I'd say this movie ranks at, let's see, I wasn't bored, I laughed, they made a couple of jokes. The villain in this movie, I think his name was Decay. I'm not sure if he was ever in the comic books, but his name pretty much describes what he could do. He just sort of touches things and they rot. And they made a Twinkie joke about it. I chuckled. I'm not a big chuckler at these kind of stupid jokes, but you know what? For what it was, I thought it was pretty good. It was not by any means the best comic book movie I've ever seen, but it certainly wasn't the worst. I'd say if I had to rate this movie, I'd give it a 6 out of 10 for effort. I feel like they tried. I'm not sure what it would take to get Nick Cage to not do these movies anymore, but as long as they're making them, he's going to be a part of them, and I don't feel happy about that whatsoever. Will they make a sequel? I have no idea. I've given up all hope that, that Ghost Rider has for the big screen. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I could say about this godforsaken movie. No, I think that's it. I hope you enjoyed this review. Hopefully I'll be doing more of this, and on time. Let me know what you think. Subscribe, wherever the button is. I don't know where the button is. But you can subscribe if you want. I might do this again, depending on how it goes. That was Ghost Rider 2 Spirit of Vengeance, my review. I gave it a 6 out of 10. Not